Bitcoin is zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin. You're against Bitcoin. You're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. We're number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolutionary code, breaking news, culture, medic warfare. Will be your guide through the separation of money. We are streaming from you. We're streaming live from Las Vegas, Nevada, where we are here in town for the Unconfiscatable Conference. We're going to be here for the rest of the week. We're going to be live streaming some shows from the conference. I think we're going to be streaming the conference itself. It's going to be a big celebration. We're really looking forward to it. Today we have a very special show. Nayib Bukele. We've been saying that he is vindicated. He's officially vindicated. His Bitcoin investment, his average price was about 40,000, and the price of Bitcoin is currently sitting at 43,000. So that goes and plays into what we've been saying over the last couple of days, and essentially is that Nayib Bukele and Michael Saylor's strategies, right? Michael Saylor on the public company level, you know, his average price per Bitcoin is about 30K, and Nayib Bukele's average price per Bitcoin about 40K. Both those strategies have been vindicated. So if you're, a CEO of a public company, or you're the shareholders, you're the shareholders of other public companies, and you're looking at Michael Saylor and what he's doing, and you're like, that looks like a pretty good idea. And this also, for other world leaders, for other presidents of other nation states around the region, around the world, that are sick and tired of either they've outsourced their monetary policy because they don't have their own fiat currency, like Ecuador, like Panama, a bunch of other countries that are using the U.S. dollar, or just your country's local currency is just not that great, like Argentina, right? That's why they elected this guy Javier Milei. He just he's gonna be sworn into office in a couple days or so, and he ran on the platform of we got to dollarize. Like, this isn't working. This hyperinflation. People should have the choice. If they want to use Bitcoin, so be it. So this mind virus is spreading, and Bitcoin's incentives stay winning. And not only do they stay winning, they're a testament. You can't deny the irrefutable fact that the IMF was wrong when they told Nayib Bukele that it was reckless, that Bitcoin investment. You can't deny that all the detractors of Michael Saylor were absolutely wrong. We're sitting pretty at 43,103. This thing just keeps going up. It keeps going parabolic. And I would hate, there was an interview too. We'll play it for you guys in the next couple of days of just Peter Schiff having an absolute meltdown. This is continuous. So anyways, we're going to talk about all of that stuff today. It's going to be a great episode. I have my fiance who's going to be co-hosting with me today. How you doing, Sophie?
I'm a little tired, but I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here. Always a pleasure co-hosting with you.
Yeah, is a special show because it's the first time. This is like a couple show. Usually we, I have Opti in the hot seat. But Opti's currently on a plane right now, or I think he missed his flight. God damn it, Opti. He's on the way to Vegas. Somehow he's going to make it here. Anyways, it's going to be a great celebration, guys. I'm really looking forward to all this. I want to bring up our of the Consensus Network. They are a publishing house, and you guys are connecting authors and readers in the Bitcoin space since 2019. So Nico, thank you so much for joining us on Simply Bitcoin Live today.
Thanks, guys. It's a huge pleasure. Yeah, it's Nico, the shadowy super publisher here. Like you said, we are focusing on publishing freedom books globally, and we just came up with the newest. It's a fiction book, 21 Futures. So pretty excited and pumped about that.
Awesome. Well, we're really excited to have you on the show, guys. Still seems like I'm having some restream issues since I updated my computer, so I'm gonna delay once I play the transitions a little bit. I'm gonna stay a little bit quiet because it seems like there's like a bit of a I don't know, like bit of static or something like after the delays. I think it had something to do with the fact that I upgraded my MacBook to the new operating system. Bear with us while we figure it out. Anyways, guys, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the numbers. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, guys, I wanted to give it a little bit of the delay just because it looks like we're having some technical difficulties since I updated my MacBook. Hopefully I'm coming in loud and clear. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price continues to rise. It's at $43,280. Sats per dollar is 2,311. Block height 819,912. Blocks to halving 20,088. Halving estimate April 19, 2024. Total Lightning Network capacity 5,033 Bitcoin. Capacity value 217 million US dollars. Realized monetary inflation 1.75%. The market capitalization of Bitcoin $846 billion with the B. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 6.23%. Continues to climb. A lot of people, a lot of high profile Bitcoiners are saying that Bitcoin is going to overtake the market cap of gold this cycle. Let's see if that comes true. But in the grand scheme of things, I still think we are extremely, extremely early. I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Make sure that you properly secure your generational wealth. You could do that by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. Take you directly to the Stamp Seed website. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Store it on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get yourself a 15% discount. Even the legacy corporate media is noticing what is going on. These are historic times. This was earlier this morning, CNBC, and here we have someone saying the quiet part out loud. After the Bitcoin halving, it will be the first time in history that we will have an asset that is more scarce than gold. All right. Let's check out what he has to say.
So, question about the halving. I've heard it called the halvening or the halving, but either one. We're getting to that in April, I think, right? And that's been a bullish thing before. I sort of wonder, is it the same thing, though? Is that already getting priced in, or is there something technical that actually happens that would make it be priced in closer to the event?
So, so what we've seen historically is that the 12 to 16 months after a halvening is the best performance of Bitcoin. So that's what everybody's thinking about. This time might be different because the price of Bitcoin's higher. We now only have, I think it's 900 Bitcoin a day that come out, so that gets cut in half. It's not a lot of Bitcoin, but what it does do is it makes Bitcoin more scarce than gold. So for the first time in history, you have an asset that is more scarce than gold.
In what way more scarce?
Let's call it a stock to flow ratio. So the amount of Bitcoin mined every year divided by the amount outstanding, same with gold. And now there'll be, quote unquote, less Bitcoin than gold mined on a relative basis.
All right.
So extremely bullish. Keep in mind, they are saying this on like they are saying this on legacy corporate media. They're bringing up the fact that they're bringing up the stock to flow. They're bringing up the fact that this has absolute scarcity. That is a big effing deal. Once again, you have an example of Bitcoin's incentives continuing to shine. They're becoming undeniable, and that's why I'm so optimistic about this next bull run, because it's not just plebs, it's not just the average everyday Bitcoiner. You have these massive institutions that are starting to realize that Bitcoin is the best money the world has ever seen. Sophie, what's your take on this? And we'll pass it on to Nico.
Well, I think that that's been clear ever since BlackRock and Fidelity and all these huge more traditional financial institutions address the fact that they were going to start buying Bitcoin and releasing a spot ETF. It's starting to go mainstream. We see it everywhere. We see guests on Joe Rogan talking about Bitcoin. We saw Joe Rogan himself talking about it. We see just everybody waking up to the fact, at least, that the money is broken and that fiat is just not it. And so once people start to see Bitcoin on their radar, once they start to see the money, the number go up, that is going to naturally incentivize people to want to buy in, not just because these corporate legacy media people are saying it, but because they'll start to realize it themselves.
Of course. Nico, what's your take on all this, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely bullish to see the mainstream media talk about scarcity to boot, not let alone absolute scarcity or relative scarcity, like that guy mentioned in the video. Like, I think most people understand that gold has some sort of value, but they don't necessarily understand why. Why is it? Stock to flow ratio was mentioned. All these concepts that Bitcoiners have been talking about for years, and they are now suddenly entering the global consciousness of the normie land, which is fantastic to see. And absolutely, Bitcoin is mathematically scarce, whereas gold is relatively scarce atomically. So once people start to wrap their head around that, what does it actually mean? That to be held back, that the monetary supply is held back simply by the amount of work required to dig the gold out of the ground. Whereas for Bitcoin, that difficulty goes up as the demand for the money increases. That is still a little bit of an elusive statement that people don't understand, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're getting there. I think the world's waking up to the fact that Bitcoin is the best money the world's ever seen. These are very, very exciting times. And, this is the vindication, like I said, for Michael Saylor, for Nayib Bukele, but for all you guys, for all the crazy ones that have been, perhaps doubted by family members, perhaps doubted by family and friends. You're being vindicated in real time, during these times right now. This is very, very exciting. We're sitting pretty at $43,224. And the halving is still a couple months away. Adam Back's prediction of $100,000 Bitcoin by the halving. I mean, this is crazy. Are people still getting too caught up in the hype? No one knows. But if you're just staying humble, stacking sats, you should be just fine. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor. There's going to be a bit of a delay. Give me a second. All right, we should be fine now. I do want to give a shout out to Bitcoin 2024. It is the largest Bitcoin conference in the world, July 25th through the 27th in Nashville, Tennessee. You want to get your tickets quickly before the prices go up. For a GA ticket, you can get it for $349. For an industry pass, if you're trying to get a job in the industry, I highly recommend this one. You can get it for $1,099. That gives you admission to all 3 days of Bitcoin Bitcoin 2024. And of course, if you're a whale, you can get yourself a VIP pass for $4,999. That gives you exclusive access to the deep backstage VIP lounge. I got to meet Tulsi Gabbard backstage. It was awesome. Opti and I are going to be there, and Sophie, and the rest of the Simply Bitcoin crew are going to be at Bitcoin 2024. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get a 10% discount to your tickets to Bitcoin 2024. All right, everybody, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the news. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, we should be good. Sorry guys, like I said, we have to delay it a little bit. I don't go fully into the matrix, guys. There's never been a more important time to take self-custody of your coins. That's why we recommend here at Simply our sponsor, Passport by Foundation Devices. It's a completely open source device. It's completely air-gapped. They make taking self-custody extremely easy. They also got an app called the Envoy. They have a concierge service. If you're not familiar with hardware wallets, I highly, highly recommend taking self-custody of your coins. And we recommend the Passport Bitcoin-only hardware wallet here at Simply Bitcoin. All right, everybody. So I do want to jump into the big news of today. And really, it was yesterday. The philosopher king, the so-called philosopher king, the great Nayib Bukele, it seems like his strategy of staying humble, stacking sats has paid off. Here at the bottom, essentially, of the bear market, or Bitcoin was sitting at 16K. Wow, it makes me so 16K Bitcoin.
I know.
Right? Like, oh, it was not that long ago that we were sitting at 16K. Anyways, Nayib Bukele was saying we are buying one Bitcoin every day starting tomorrow. He started that strategy, and fast forward, it seems like it's paid off. Here's Walker America, part of the crypto couple. He says El Salvador has been DCAing into Bitcoin, buying one Bitcoin per day since November 2022. They are now in profit, but have no intention of selling their scarce Bitcoin for abundant fiat. This is what conviction looks like. Other nations will do well to pay attention. I think that last part really is the signal. Even Bloomberg is covering it. Check out this article. El Salvador's Bitcoin investments turned profitable, Bukele says. El Salvador's Bitcoin investments turned profitable after a recent rally in the cryptocurrency, according to Nayib Bukele, who's running for re-election. Bukele, who stepped down as president last week to focus on the campaign, said on X the country's Bitcoin investments are up 2.84%, netting the country $3.6 million in profit. He said the government has no intention of selling its Bitcoin and will hold its position as part of its long-term strategy. The price of Bitcoin rose above $42,000 on Monday, extending its rally this year to more than 150%. El Salvador was the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender in 2021. Former Finance Minister Alejandro Zelaya, who oversaw Bitcoin's implementation, said Sunday on X, the Valley vindicates the government's decisions. Completely agree. Bukele's leads polls ahead of a February presidential election, having slashed crime by jailing tens of thousands of alleged gang members. If he wins, he would be sworn in to a second 5-year term in June. All right, so moving in, here's Tur de Meester. He goes on to say 135 countries have presidents, and how many of them are candidates now taking notes from Bukele's Bitcoin playbook for their next election campaign? I don't think that it's a coincidence that the first country that made Bitcoin legal tender adopted a Bitcoin strategy and a Bitcoin standard has the most popular president in the Americas. And I think that's why you see so many attacks from the legacy corporate media on figures like Nayib Bukele, figures like Michael Saylor, Bitcoin in general, because I think that they're scared. I think Bitcoin is a clear and present danger to the status quo. It shines a light of truth on the fiat bullshit, to put it bluntly. Here's Beauty On. He says, the responsible thing to do would be for them to issue retractions, offer apologies, or at the very least acknowledge that El Salvador is now yielding a profit, says Nayib Bukele. Anti-Bitcoin journalists will never do what the president is suggesting. They're either ignorant of why El Salvador has made Bitcoin legal tender, or as in the case of The Economist, are philosophically opposed to Bitcoin. If you think the payoff in El Salvador's move to Bitcoin is spectacular, now just wait till Bitcoin is $1 million per coin. Very large banking institutions think Bitcoin's rise is inevitable. Standard Chartered thinks Bitcoin could reach $100,000 by the end of 2024. And they, like all other legacy participants, have no idea of why Bitcoin works or was written in the first place. Even if Bitcoin reaches 100K by end of 2024, that isn't the end of time. And 100K is nothing when you take into consideration the billions of people that are going to be moved into Bitcoin. El Salvador is a properly run country that in and of itself chafes at the pride of Westerners who believe they have an inherent right to rule over others. In a world where Bitcoin is the money, good stewardship of the state will reap rewards and praise for statesmen. And that last part is really, really on point, because you have to remember what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin aligns incentives, and we live in a world with misaligned incentives. If a bureaucrat or politician get into a position of power, what they're incentivized to do is to get as close as humanly possible to the money spigot, rather than do good by their constituents. But once you switch to a sound money standard, politicians are actually incentivized to do good by their constituents. So you have a society with aligned incentives. And that's what Beauty On is pointing out here. Anyways, he goes on to say, just as it has in El Salvador, Western statesmen feel that they have a right to be lionized and fawned over no matter what they do or how disastrous their unacceptable schemes are. Bitcoin puts a permanent end to cronyism and the ill effects of incompetence. That's why Westerner governments hate it. Beauty On absolutely hit the nail on the head. I got to give that a like, because that is beautiful the way he said it. Anyways, if you guys still don't believe it, if you still think that El Salvador is just a big nothing burger, here is macro scope. This is a traditional kind of like Wall Street guy. This is a macro guy. This is an American. This isn't a Latin American. And let's hear what he has to say, because apparently, he went to El Salvador. He said, last week I flew from JFK, New York's airport, to El Salvador, and here's what happened during the trip. Because of Bitcoin, I've been reading about the country and decided to visit. More on Bitcoin in a minute. Also comment on the topic of safety. First, here's a takeaway from what I saw. If I was an investor looking internationally for on-the-ground opportunities, I would immediately get an office in the capital of San Salvador and look for ways to put money in the country by either starting a new business and employing Salvadorians or backing an existing business. Multiple sectors are growing fast, including tourism, hospitality, and real estate. The opportunities seem huge. I stayed a week in San Salvador and in El Zonte, which is also known as Bitcoin Beach. The first impression is at the airport, which is modern and efficient. Because of a delay in New York, my flight arrived in El Salvador a few hours late, but my hotel driver was there. He had been patiently keeping watch for me, and he was smiling as he held up a sign with my name on it. This was my introduction to the country, and it turned out to be representative of what I would experience during my visit. The people are friendly, hardworking, proud, entrepreneurial, and family-oriented. Isn't it crazy what happens when you fix the base layer of society, when society's incentives are aligned, when society switches to a sound money standard, imagine the whole world like this. I really think that Bitcoin, adopting Bitcoin, countries making Bitcoin legal tender, people using Bitcoin as money, I think you'll see more and more examples of this. Fiat fundamentally brings the worst out of people, while Bitcoin brings the best out of people. You quickly notice that new construction and infrastructure improvements are happening everywhere. I was struck by how the construction workers seem to be working very hard. You get the sense that this is a country on the move, and it's easy to see why El Salvador's financial situation has improved. The country's sovereign bonds have seen huge returns recently, and institutional investors should continue to watch opportunities to allocate here. The goal in El Salvador seems to be a Latin American version of Singapore, business-friendly, growth-oriented, tough on crime. Based on what I saw during my visit, this is achievable and they're making progress. Remember, Singapore wasn't always the type of country it is now. Far from it, in fact. It first needed the right policies and leadership. And by the way, I don't remember seeing the international media criticize Singapore for being tough on crime. Regarding safety, I felt totally safe and relaxed at all times in El Salvador, much safer than ever than even the best areas of New York City these days. The police and private security guards are everywhere, and they're professional, courteous, vigilant, and tough. You do not want to be a criminal here. But it was not always this way. I had an interesting conversation with a young man working in a small shop, and he said before the crackdown on gangs, much of the money he earned had to be paid to the bad guys. So it was almost pointless to own or start a business. I asked him where the gang members are now. He replied, dead or in jail. He goes on to say, if there is something to keep an eye on, it's the president. It's that President Bukele and his new idea policies are clearly very important for continued progress. Bukele is hugely popular and viewed by many as a national hero. Look at that. The crazy concept. If the politician that gets elected into office actually does the things that he says he does, and actually does the things that government is supposed to do, which is protect your private property, provide safety. Isn't it crazy that somehow he's popular?
It's a new idea. It's honestly a revolutionary concept here in the West, because governments, if they actually did that, they would lose control. And they don't want any of that to happen. So Latin America in general has such a huge opportunity here. This is the future of Latin America. This is where other countries could be going. Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia, this is where we could be going. And big governments don't want that to happen, because the few who are in power want to keep us controlled with fiat.
Yeah, 100%. And I just want to double back to Beauty On's take here, because I think he hit the nail on the head. El Salvador, he goes on to say, in a world where Bitcoin is the money, good stewardship of the state will reap rewards and praise for statesmen, just as it has in El Salvador. Western statesmen feel that they have a right to be lionized and fawned over no matter what they do and how disastrous their unaccountable schemes are. Bitcoin puts a permanent end to cronyism and the ill effects of incompetence. That's why Westerner governments hate it.
Yeah, it means they have to work.
Yeah, they have to actually provide value, and this is why they hate El Salvador. This is why they're using all this language about El Salvador being this like fascistic extremist society. No, all he's doing is providing safety to law-abiding citizens. He's extremely popular for it. He's providing opportunity. The GDP is growing. The economy is growing. Yes, this is what happens when you fix the base layer of society. I can't emphasize that enough. Aligned incentives, aligned society, good society. We all live in society, especially if you live in the West, the developing world. You probably live in a society where the incentives are aligned. So you have governments here, like at least from an American-centric view, you have literally Joe Biden literally going on TV and saying, I'm frustrated that Americans think that inflation is somehow the responsibility of the government. You have his press secretary going on TV and literally making the case that Thanksgiving has gotten cheaper. You had him tweet the other day, and he got community noted for this, which is, by the way, why they want to take down Elon Musk and why they want to take down Twitter. They can't allow that free speech. But he got fact checked in real time. He was basically making the case that inflation hasn't risen. But like, that's a blatant lie. Like, I mean, and again, like, I'll just go through a couple of these, and just to be specific, guys, this is not left or right thing. Both parties, whether it's the conservatives or the liberals, they do the same thing when they're in office. They just print an F ton of money and devaluing everyone's purchasing power in the process of doing that. So anyways, here's Joe Biden. He says, let me be clear to any corporation that hasn't brought their prices back down, even as inflation has come down, it's time to stop the price gouging. Give Americans, consumers a break. So that is the definition of gaslighting. Here he gets community noted, and he says, as long as the inflation rate is positive, prices are increasing. The fact that inflation has come down to 3.2% in October means that prices are still going up. They're just going up in a slower rate. So like, he is essentially relying on low information voters and low information people saying, oh, inflation is down. Just because inflation is down, that all that means is that prices aren't increasing as fast. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that the prices are going to go back to where they were before. So this is the definition of gaslighting. You have the leader of the free world using his platform to lie to people. And this isn't just happening in America. This is happening everywhere around the world. As long as your country has a fiat currency and a central bank, and that government of that country benefits from being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for, this is what you're going to get. Because no one is better than their incentives. And politicians are not going to do something that they're not incentivized to do. Joe Biden, obviously, he's going to lie because he benefits tremendously, either personally or just the government itself, from being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for. This is what the separation of money and state is all about. Because we have to go back to a government that's by the people, for the people. As long as inflation, as long as fiat money is a thing, you're always going to have a government that's by the government, for the government. They're not incentivized to do good by their constituents because they have a money printer. While you have to slave away, work your ass off to accumulate this fiat money, they can just print it. That is the scam. That is the scheme. So of course he's going to lie. Now, we have the internet where we can fact check in real time. You have Elon, who's doing a better job, right? Supporting free discourse and free speech. So this type of bullshit gets caught up in real time. This is why they're trying to take him down. That's why the whole happened, right? So this is these are some crazy times, but as long as El Salvador is an example of what could be, they're going to have a hard effing time because they're not going to be able to explain it. And we're entering the singularity right now. There's two forces that are about to crash. And essentially, Michael Saylor, he was right. And other public companies are looking over and saying, you know, that strategy might be a good one. And on the nation state level, now that we're sitting at $43,294, Nayib Bukele was right. The IMF was wrong. Maybe we should copy El Salvador. Maybe that Bitcoin strategy is a good idea after all. Anyway, Sophie, what's your take on this? And then we'll pass it on to our guest.
I think it's incredible that they are gaslighting corporations who, for better or for worse, actually do bring value. And they're saying that they're the ones that have to bring the prices down. If they bring their prices down, they can't do what they do. They can't provide the value that they provide. Why don't they start lowering interest rates? Why don't they start making tax cuts? Why don't they actually do things that are in their power as a government to bring things under control? People are suffering here. And it's incredible to me that they actually blame the people who are who are bringing some value to the economy.
I mean, I think Bideon says it best. Like, they don't have a choice but to do that. Anyways, I do want to get our guest input in this. Man, what's your take as a fellow Bitcoiner? You're watching this stuff, and I'm sure, you know, if you're not living in El Salvador, I don't want to dox you or anything. You know, I'm sure you're starting to see some of this gaslighting, some of this lies and misrepresentations from politicians to justify the continued existence of fiat currencies.
Absolutely, and it works in West still. Like we are sort of looking at this narrative-driven flippening of geopolitical powers, essentially. Because in Latin America, like look at Argentina, for example, people there are completely tired and fed up with the lies. They will not take it anymore. And I think the same thing is going to happen in the West as well. Like, it still works because people have the sunken cost fallacy. They build all their life on the lies. It's very tough break to look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, you done goofed. Like, this is not going to fly. And we're looking at becoming the third world countries ourselves, instead of those countries that we've used to sort of looking down on. And this is something that everybody in the West should take heed and try to do a little bit of legwork and help build these new narratives, like the well incentivized government that is accountable. That should be a powerful incentive or a narrative to everybody. But at the moment, unfortunately, like you said, the politicians rely heavily on ill-informed voters. And as long as that continues to be the case, the parasite will continue to stay in power, unfortunately. But yeah, places like El Salvador and maybe Argentina soon are the flag bearers on this. And I think people are going to have to pay attention, because Bitcoin is still not dead. Like, Bitcoin will continue to gracefully die for the next couple of decades.
100%, 100%. It's in the very first innings of this. This is extremely exciting times to be alive. This is absolutely a revolution. We're witnessing it firsthand. It is a peaceful revolution, which is the best part about it. It's not kinetic. You got to do your part. You got to play your part and contribute, help educate the people around you, help debunk some of those lies, misrepresentations, and spin, because the attacks are going to continue to increase. Governments are going to continue to take advantage of low information voters, of the uneducated, and they're going to continue to use the divide and conquer strategy of it's the left or it's the right, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. If you're on the right side, you blame the left for all your woes and economic hardships. If you're on the left, you blame the right? That's the divide and conquer strategy. It's not left versus right. It's green versus orange. It's a party of Bitcoin, peace, prosperity, opportunity versus a party of slavery, which is a party of green and fiat. That is the battle hand, and it is your responsibility as an individual to take agency, to take it upon yourself to wake up the people around you to Bitcoin. I really think that Bitcoin will unite the world in a way the likes of which it's never been seen before. I think the root of all evil, maybe not all evil, but the root of a lot of evil comes from theft. And fiat money enables theft. That's what it is. It's a theft enabler on a massive scale. It is time theft. You're stealing people's time and life force and energy. And even if they don't realize, there's consequences to that. People feel it innately. And I think a lot of frustration gets boiled up. But people continue to seek resolution to that frustration through a political system that's been co-opted by the fiat system itself, right? So Bitcoin is the escape valve out of that, right? It's just like, I'm going to take my money out of the system, my energy out of the system, and reclaim my time. That's what it's all about. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Kaboom! They're the best place and the most trusted place to buy and sell host mining equipment. You got to check out the racks. You could scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to the Kaboom Racks Telegram marketplace. You could check out their massive inventory. They make purchasing products easy and transparent. You can connect with a member of their sales team. You could also sell mining equipment with them. They have a vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with them. I highly recommend Kaboom Racks if you're trying to get into mining. They're absolutely awesome, and they'll make your mining experience great. Anyways, everybody, let's get on to the culture. Let's do it.
The Daily Culture.
Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your Bitcoin stack with automated Bitcoin savings plans and instant purchases, serving clients of any size from $10 to $10 million. We love Swan because they incentivize self-custody and dollar cost averaging. What are you waiting for? Visit SwanBitcoin.com today. All right, everybody. I do want to highlight our guest. He's with the Consensus Network. So, Nico, I do want to give you the floor. What is the Consensus Network? I see that you have a lot of high-profile Bitcoiners on here. You got Jeff Booth, you got Svetsky, you got VJ, you have Saifedean. So many Daniel Prince, you got Tomer down there. So you got some epic Bitcoiners on here. What is Consensus Network?
Thanks. Yeah, Consensus Network is a freedom publishing house. We use the profile mostly just like Bitcoin only, but we're not really Bitcoin only anymore. We do more and more libertarian books as well, because freedom is the underlying protocol, and Bitcoin is just a very handy tool for that. So a lot of our books are still about Bitcoin. We have Knut Svanholm books are quite popular, and the latest one, if you go to the languages and click English, you will find the 21 Futures, which is the one that we were talking about narratives earlier. I think that's something that we can do as a publisher, to publish interesting stories that are not nonfiction. Because let's face it, there's low information people that we're trying to reach seldom read nonfiction books and try to educate themselves. What they do read, however, is maybe some interesting stories in a fiction book. So that's what that project is about. But in general, we provide all publishing services to self-publishers, which is quite popular nowadays. We're specialized in editing, typesetting, translations. We do over a dozen different languages. We have about 100 titles in our shop right now, bitcoinbook.shop. And this is our first completely our own production, which I'm really proud of. And actually just the first review got published on Bitcoin Magazine and Nasdaq just today. So you should definitely check those out. I hope people are going to like it. And the intention of this product is that this is something that you can comfortably gift to your normie friends, because it's not one of those orange pilling books per se. It's focusing on high stakes human interest fiction stories. So we got 21 authors, 21 different stories from 21 different universes, somehow connected to Bitcoin, somehow connected to liberty and the incentive model. Some of them are dystopias, bad things happen, and some are more bullish. The point is that this way we can lure people closer to Bitcoiner and libertarian ideals, and that's something that I want to do a little bit more in the future. Maybe some short film production based on the interesting stories. And this is also a trend that I see emerging. People are interested in writing more stories about Bitcoin that are not that are fiction, actually. And I think couple decades from now on, we don't even have to call it Bitcoin fiction. It will just be regular fiction. Right now, it's kind of a niche that doesn't exist. But I think it's an important one, and it's something that can resonate with just anybody who's interested in stories.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Out of all these books, I don't want to put you on the spot. Which one is your favorite and why?
Right. So I like to say that my all-time favorite book is probably Man, Economy, and State by Murray Rothbard, which we don't carry at the moment. But from Bitcoin books, I gotta say it's Crypto Economics by Eric Voskuil. It does a really good neutral treatment of the underlying axioms that make Bitcoin and its incentives work and make it what it is. And I highly recommend that one. Bitcoin Standard is obviously the very important book for the reason that it gives the well-needed monetary education to anybody and accessible to everybody. So that's a very good book also to gift. But let's be honest, it's 400 pages. It's history. It's not going to resonate with everybody. So maybe some books like 21 Futures. I haven't seen the real customer reviews yet, but the first one that we have online right now is really good. So I hope people like that and it becomes a favorite of many people. But for me personally, I recommend checking out Crypto Economics. And of course, everybody's probably read Bitcoin Standard already.
That's awesome. So where do you see this going? Where do you see the Bitcoin bookshop, 5 years from now as hyper Bitcoinization continues to accelerate?
Well, I hope we're going to sell a lot more books. Like right now, let's be honest, we're basically selling to Bitcoiners who wanna stack books and stack sats and then try to orange pill their normie friends. That's the market basically. So we're very in the beginning. So my hope is that these topics become more interesting to the wider public, sort of like Austrian economics books. But even when that happens, and that will happen when Bitcoin garners interest, it's still a fringe market. Like it's not like you meet a person who's read Rothbard every day, even among Bitcoiners. So we're still talking about kind of like a fringe market. So looking forward like 5-10 years, I think we're going to do more and more books. We're going to try to meet people where they are. So we have to listen to the market. We have to understand what kind of stories people are interested in reading. Like it doesn't matter how great I think that the book is if nobody's going to pick it up and read and just put it on the shelf and it's going to gather dust there for 2 decades. Somebody might read it, but that's not really what the mission is about. The mission is to get these ideas in the heads of as many people as quickly as possible. And how do we do that? That's by using different techniques like fiction that touches on these topics.
Do you see people interested in the fiction books?
I mean, people like movies like The Matrix, for example, and other fiction books. Of course, granted, for a lot of people, Matrix is just another action movie. They maybe miss some of the underlying connections to the fiat world that we understand immediately. That being said, at least people are familiar with that story. So it is a fertile ground to start to explain things. Like if you start talking about monetary history, people are going to start yawning. And that's not like, it's a very small amount of people that you can touch with that message, unfortunately. No matter how much I would like that to be the case, that people like to educate themselves, they want to be entertained. And we need to accept that. Like people want short form content. They want interesting, easy to digest books and stories. So let's give it to them. Like I say, let's give it to them. And once they are ready, we still have that library of hundreds of books that will dive deeper and you can take those steps on your own time. So I'm done pushing the agenda on people and I'm focusing on creating interesting stories and narratives.
100%. You win over the culture. Politics is downstream from culture. You win over the culture, you win. That's how you win. You have to win over the culture. You do that by art form, music, sculpture, books, music, movies. You make the ideas, the Bitcoin ethos, part of the mainstream consciousness, and you won't even have to fight anything. It's just, people will naturally want to seek sound money. They'll naturally want to live on a sound money standard. And I think you're seeing that in El Salvador with Nayib Bukele as well. You're seeing him, really teach the young generations, right? I think last time I saw it, Saifedean was teaching a class to these young El Salvadorian kids about sound money. Could you imagine, like, from such a young age, programmed essentially to understand the benefits of sound money? And then you contrast that with the educational system in the US or in the Western world. They don't even teach you about money. They do it on purpose because I think if people knew, it's the scheme would be over. It'd be very difficult for them to continue gaslighting us. Anyways, guys, this was today's Simply Bitcoin. We are streaming, like I said, we're going to be streaming from Las Vegas live. I want to thank our guest Nico. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thanks for everybody who was watching.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. Guys, that was Simply Bitcoin Live. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. And Sophie, any last words?
Keep stacking. Keep stacking and tell your friends and family I told you so they can stack too.
Oh my God, bullish. All right, guys, we love you all. We'll see you tomorrow on the next show. Peace out, everybody.